going to hit record here because I can always edit it later, but it's way more fun to have to take stuff out versus add it in. So just before we get started, my name is Anissa. I produce the Entrepreneur Collective, the Ladies Meeting, and the Coffee House Network podcast as well. Brenda is a member of the Ladies Meeting, which is a private women's group, and we meet on the last Tuesday of every month in Vancouver at the Sylvia Hotel. You can find us at theladiesmeeting.com, or if you want to find our back office, which is co-ed, is theentrepreneurcollective.com, where we've got tools. This webinar, for example, will be uploaded there so people can view it later. And it's also an amazing place to post your business and network with, at the moment, over 100 people. And in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to ask everyone to invite one friend, which means we're going to have probably over 300 people very quickly. And I've just done a deal with the trade exchange that's going to give 3 months to people after our next event. So I'm putting together another online event for the end of the month. On the last Tuesday of the month, we'll do another summit, which we did last month quite successfully. And basically looking for some new sponsors and people to make it a really amazing event. So if you have something you want to offer to people at that event and promote your business and grow your influence, please contact me inside the Entrepreneur Collective and let me know how I can help you grow your influence. Be great. So we have Brenda, me. What's your first name? All I have is fruit.
Darren.
Darren.
I'm just typing in the Zoom chat here. Hold on. So.
Oh, perfect. And if you want to post your website or how we can find you later, that would be awesome. Mm-hmm. Perfect. There we go.
Hold on. Let me just put it here.
Yeah, post your website. And I think Yumi is on here. She's an interior designer. She's absolutely amazing. She's also a member of the Ladies Meeting and the Entrepreneur Collective. And she's in Vancouver. If you want to post your website up, Yumi, that would be awesome.
He already has.
Perfect. There we go. Awesome. And I'm really trying to encourage her to do an online webinar with me, but she hasn't done one before. So I'm excited. We all want to live in pretty spaces right now. I'm lucky. I'm up in Whistler where it's absolutely gorgeous and it's a beautiful sunny day. So I hope it's the same in Vancouver.
Yeah, it's beautiful today.
I'm going to hand over to Brenda, and she's our presenter today, Tools to Fix Your Presentation Mistakes. Take it away, Brenda.
Thank you, Anissa. So I'm very happy to be here, and thank you all for coming out today on a beautiful day here in Vancouver. A day when it'd be nice to be out socializing with people, but we can't do that right now. So I'd like to start by inviting you to do a, let's see. It did this last time and then it started working. There we go. Invite you to do a self-assessment. So the reason I'm asking you to do this is because A, it will help me know how to sort of focus my talk, and also I want to do it because I've been to a number of presentations where people were really not very connected with their audience at all. And I'll get to that in just a sec. So on my assessment, 0 is you've never, ever done a presentation to a group. 10 is you think you are brilliant. And if you can put that into the chat, that would be lovely. And I'll ask Anissa for the outcome in a few minutes, not right now. So if you can do that, I will keep going. So many presentations, people are on their phones, they're talking to each other, they're not really paying any attention at all to the speaker. I've been to a whole bunch of those presentations. So have you ever seen a presentation like that? Based on the public presentation, yeah, there I see some nods. Based on when I've done this in public, I've had virtually every hand in the audience go up because we've all, I think, seen a presentation like that. The more challenging question is, have you done a presentation like that? I have, but before we get to my story, I wanted to do just a bit of housekeeping. So, Anissa, what does it look like in terms of sort of where people are at?
Actually pretty good. So between 6 and 9, some 8s and 9s, some rather confident people, which is
excellent, excellent.
So yeah, and the lowest I see is a 6. So that's amazing. That's great.
That is amazing.
And I
But
think-
because this is being recorded, I'm not going to take out the stuff that the 6 to 9 people don't need. I'm still going to do it because people watching may be more down at the 0, 1, 2, 3 level. So, and the other thing I want to get you set up for now is to go onto your phones. Don't do it on your computer. If you can do it on your phone, that would be good. This is I'm going to actually be playing 4 games with you in the course of the next 45 minutes to an hour. And when we get there, it will ask you, when you load that, it will ask you for a nickname. So for your nickname, put the same thing each of the 4 times we play. And it will then ask you for the game pin, and you won't get that until we get to actually playing the game. But I thought if you get it set up now, then we won't have a lot of time while people are trying to get it set up. So https://kahoot.it. And that will come up again later. So my story. So about 30 years ago, I found myself at the foot of a raised classroom like that at SFU downtown Vancouver. And I was completely terrified. This was the first sort of presentation I was doing. The room was full of securities industry professionals, and I had been asked, my boss walked in one day and she said, "You wrote this policy, you need to go talk to our industry about it." And I went, blah, I don't do that. Well, I probably didn't do that out loud because she was my boss. But sure enough, I was there because she said I was going to be, and I was. I didn't have a clue what I should do. I was, as I said, terrified, and I knew I was there to talk about my policy. Now, I was at that time an incredibly good transactional lawyer. What that means is I drafted stuff. At the private law firm I was at initially, I drafted contracts and corporate resolutions and prospect offering documents. And then I moved to the Securities Commission and I drafted policies and forms. But being that kind of a lawyer meant I didn't have to go talk to people until my boss said I did. So I did, and I droned on and on about my policy. Section 1 of the policy says, Section 2 of the policy says, Section 25.3 of the policy says, and while I droned on and on, what was my audience doing? Yes, they were sleeping. That's not what you want your audience to be doing. And I was terrified. I mean, I thought that someone would figure out I wasn't a real lawyer. I mean, lawyers are supposed to be able to talk to people. And I had clearly not done that very well, as you can tell. So I went back to the office, and a few years later, a Toastmasters club started at my office. And I joined that club. I've been a member of that club ever since. And that club helped me get over the fear and terror I had felt at SFU. So then I ended up becoming head of policy and then head of a project to rewrite securities law for BC. And, oh, sorry, before I got there, my boot camp, I forgot. That's where I was going next. So I had said I was terrified at SFU. I worked with Victoria Cubbon, and she did my boot camp with me, and she was terrified too. She was asked to give a presentation. She was extremely nervous. She had a whole bunch of things she wanted to say, and she didn't quite know what to say about them or how to do that. And so she came to me, and she said, by working with Brenda, I was able to create a structure for my talk and come up with relatable stories to share. Brenda's strategy gave me the confidence I needed to make my talk as effective, entertaining, and memorable as possible. And I saw Victoria's talk, and she was great. You would never have known that she was nervous. She was really, really good. So that brings me to part 2 of my story. So in my role as director of policy and as head of the new legislation project, I did a lot of presentations, and they were what I would call standard presentations for lawyers, accountants, engineers, IT people. Lots and lots of people do presentations like this. So I had slides with just text and lots of facts, and then I had more text and more facts and more text and more facts, and as I got better, the text came in as I spoke about the facts. I thought that was pretty impressive. The problem was I was impressed with my technical abilities, but I still was not connecting with my audience. All that changed about 9 years ago when I got training on how people learn and remember. And I learned a couple of very surprising facts based on science, which I'll talk to you about in a few minutes, but I'll just give you the highlights here. Excuse me. First, that facts do not persuade. And second, that the more text and data you put on your slides, the less that people remember. So in my last 5 years at the Securities Commission, I helped my colleagues, lawyers, accountants, engineers, give informative presentations that were memorable. And in March of 2018, I retired from the Securities Commission. I started my own business, Memorable Presenter Consulting, and yes, this is my own business, Memorable Presenter. My clients often say that they're worried that their audience is not connecting with them, or they're not getting and keeping the attention of their audience. This is often due to them overwhelming their audience, and I will talk about that as we go through. So the first problem, and it doesn't sound like people on this call really have it, but certainly many people do, is a fear of public speaking. In fact, it has its own term, glossophobia, and Ethos3 has estimated that fear of public speaking cuts wages by 10% and inhibits promotion to management by 15%. But it's not just fear that leads to bad presentations. Or rather, the impact of bad presentations can happen even if you're not fearful. So you may not be seen as an expert. And I was in a webcast with a bunch of people at the Securities Commission, all lawyers. The person talking was a lawyer in Ontario, and she was dreadful. She did everything I'll tell you today not to do. And she even did something that I wouldn't think anyone would do, which is she started, every now and then she would say, "Oh, is that where we are?" Because almost certainly some junior in her office had prepared the presentation and she hadn't looked at it before she stood up in front of the audience. Now, she wasn't afraid. She thought she was a really good presenter. As we walked out of the room, my colleagues, at least half to 3/4 of them, said, "I would never hire her." She is a very good transactional lawyer, like I was. How she did on this presentation had nothing to do with her skill as a lawyer, but it affected how they saw her, and she wasn't seen as an expert. The other impact of bad presentations is it harms business. It can hurt the reputation of the business, and it can lead to a loss of clients or not gaining clients. And of course, for entrepreneurs, it's those two things combined. It's not being seen as an expert and harming your business. So today I'm going to cover 3 topics. First, presence or stage presence, how to feel confident on stage, which most of you already know, but I'm going to do it anyway. Secondly, the science of connection, which will be the sort of backing for what I said earlier. And then structure, which is organization and PowerPoint. So now we're going to play our first game. So as I said earlier, you want to be at kahoot.ca, and when I get out of this, get back to here and start my game. And in a moment, it will come up.
And I've got it up on my phone for anyone who's, you can just get it up on your phone. And there is a
exactly
prompt too. So realize I've put the link in the notes, and it's kahoot.it. So just make sure you don't confuse that. And we've actually used this for big family games too. So this is awesome.
Yeah, exactly. It can be used for all sorts of different games. So our number for this game, every game will have a different pin. So you'll need to go back and do this again each time. For the impact one, it's, as you can see, 2936036. We have 2 people on so far.
I'm in.
You're in. And I would say when you do this next time, just keep doing what you're doing now. Like, don't have a different name each time. Just use, because it'll ask you again for your nickname because it's all different. Each game is different, but just keep doing what you're doing. And the winner of each of the 4 games will win a prize. The prize is a free 30-minute needs assessment with me, so you will know what you're already doing well and what area to focus on to make your presentations even better than they are now. The only person I think we're missing is Brenda.
And Brenda, if you open the chat box, you'll see, hopefully she can hear us. It's https://kahoot.it.
Thank you for putting that in there. That's great.
I found there was a challenge with the .com as well in one poll.
Yeah, no, if you go to .com, you won't get to this. You'll get somewhere else.
Okay, well, let's move ahead either way.
Yeah, okay. So hopefully Brenda will join us. In the meantime, minimize that. And we'll start the game.
This is so exciting for people who are on their phone.
Fear of public speaking reduces wages by 5%, 10%, 15%, or 20%. You have 11 seconds.
I'm getting a different game. Anybody else getting this?
What are you getting?
I don't get percentages. I just get...
No, nobody gets it. You only get the percentages on the main computer screen, not on your phone.
Oh,
so you have to watch the computer and play it on the phone. Sorry, I should have said that at the beginning. The phone will only give you the colors and image and the source, you know, the square, circle, diamond, etc. The answers you're choosing from are on the computer screen.
Oh, okay. Now I know.
Okay, so the answer here was 10%, and we had one person get that, and somebody choose 15, and somebody else choose 20. So we'll go next. And Darren is on top with 735 points. Well done, Darren. Okay, I'm going to go back now. Oh, actually, no, I'm going to go next. So fear of public speaking inhibits promotion to management by 5%, 10%, 15%, 20%. Again, this is the answers are on the computer screen, but the playing is on the phone. Okay, so 2 people got it right, and 2 people got it higher than it was. It's actually 15%. So right now, oh, and I should say that the way you get points in this game is A, of course, getting the right answer, but B, getting it quickly. So Yumi leapt into the lead because she must have got the right answer and got it faster than whoever else got the right answer. Next. Bad presentations harm career and may lead to depression, may not be seen as an expert, may not be promoted, may lead to outbursts of crying. So one person got it right as may not be seen as an expert. The other 3 of you put may not be promoted, and that may also be true. But the answer that I was looking for based on what I've said so far is may not be seen as an expert. Oh, so Ashley jumped ahead. Oh, this is a good race, this one. This is a good one. So bad presentation harm an organization's reputation, and the organization may have staff quit, may be put out of business, may have to lay off staff, may lose or not gain clients. And everybody got that one right. Yay!
Finally, I got something.
And Yumi in 3rd, Darren in 2nd, and Ashley in 1st place. Well done, Ashley. So our winner of the first round is Ashley, and I'll be in touch with you to schedule your needs assessment, okay? And we will go back. Actually, I'll just get feedback. There we go. There's everybody's score. And we'll go here to play a new game, which we won't play right now, but I want to get back to that spot. And I think, yeah, I'm just going to close that and go there. And that's where I want to be when we come back for our next game after I do the next bit. So we're going to go from the current slide. So we start with stage presence. What is the big mistake with stage presence? What I've picked is something, the overarching problem, which is being overwhelmed by presenting. And there's most of you on this call, that's not a problem for you, but certainly for many people, it is a problem. And this can be caused by extreme fear or excessive nerves. And what happens when that's how you're showing up on stage is that your audience will start to worry about you. Is he going to be okay? Will she break down in tears? Is she going to go running off screaming from the stage? The moment that's what they're thinking, they've stopped hearing what you're saying about the information you're trying to present. And what they'll remember is how you made them feel, which is worried. They won't remember your information. So to be a presenter, you need to stand out like that red pencil. You can't just be one of the crowd. And to do that, you actually do need nerves. Nerves are normal and necessary. If you have no nerves at all, you will sound rather robotic and put your audience to sleep. You don't want to do that. So I have some questions for you, and if you can put your answers into the chat. Question 1, when you're preparing for a presentation, when you're creating that presentation, what are you focused on? Secondly, when you're presenting, what are you thinking about? I know for me, back at SFU all those years ago, what I was thinking about was, don't make a mistake, don't make a mistake, don't make a mistake. But when you're in the audience, what do you want from the presenter? So Anissa, do we have some answers to those questions? What do people think about when they're preparing or creating the presentation?
Well, I haven't got anybody else's yet, but I see for me.
That'll do for now.
Ashley says, in the audience, I want people to look at me versus the presentation. And I think that speaks to what Bill Gates would do. He would have the whole image behind him. Not Bill Gates, the other guy, the Apple guy.
Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs. He'd have the whole image behind him. So you weren't like looking off into little spaces. You were looking at him.
Yeah. So when you're creating, any answers to that?
And Yumi said, creating interesting and resourceful information. Mm-hmm. For me, it's about finding original images and making sure I don't have any typos, because I'm really good at making typos.
And when you're up in front of, when you're on stage, what are you thinking about when you're presenting? You or others, if anybody else has answered.
For me, I literally, my biggest challenge, even though I present at the ladies meeting every month and I've done Toastmasters, I grew up on a stage in a conference center and I still don't connect. I don't see people. I have a white sheet that just blanks me out. So for me, I actually look at people. I literally will have people in the audience. So I'm like, please make sure I look you in the eye each time. So I have little cheaters. I have people who like make sure I look at them, because I have as much as I've been on the stage tons, the fear does not seem to go down.
Anybody else on that question?
And you're welcome to come unmute yourself and talk as well. Nope, nobody else.
Okay, and in audience, anyone other than Ashley? Because Ashley's was in the audience, right? She wants to be looked at, not have people looking behind them at the screen, right? Okay, let's keep going.
Oh no, now we're getting, maybe there's just a delay on Zoom. So
okay.
Brenda says make sure her story is interesting. You mean resourceful information. I meant interesting. Oh, interesting presentation. Creating something from Darren, creating something that connects with the audience and holds their attention. And when presenting, having the audience's full attention. When in the audience, something that keeps me engaged. And Yumi, she tries to see the overall audience, focusing on people who are looking at me. Which, yeah, that's a huge times. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. So that brings us to tool number 3 for stage presence, which is, there's all sorts of tools, by the way, for stage presence. The one I've chosen to share with you today is to say a mantra before you speak. So my friend Eloise was an accountant working at a mill in Gold River. She had, in that position, she did a few, what I would call standard lawyer, accountant, etc. presentations, like that slide I showed you with just text on it. She did those kind of presentations. And then 2 things happened that devastated her. First, her husband, the love of her life, died. And then the mill closed down and she lost her job. She ended up in Vancouver, and was helped by Dress for Success Vancouver, my favorite charity. And she ended up being a spokesperson for Dress for Success Vancouver. She went out and she spoke to larger and larger audiences. And as she did that, at one of those, someone came up to her at the end and said, "You looked so confident up there. Didn't you have butterflies in your stomach?" And she said, "Of course I had butterflies. I just needed to get them to fly in formation." So her mantra is fly in formation. And that causes her to giggle a bit, because you think about butterflies, you know, flitting off in all directions, but her, fly in formation. For me, and I've had this mantra well before I knew Eloise, my mantra is, it's showtime. And that causes me to giggle as well, because it sounds like I'm going out on a Broadway stage or something in front of thousands and thousands and thousands of people, not in front of, you know, the however many people are on the call now, or the people who might be watching, but it isn't like being on a Broadway stage. So that brings us to our next, and I will get back to, that's really weird. Whoops. I don't want to go there yet. I want to be here. Oh yes, okay, that worked. So we have another one to play. It will be a new, you'll have to start over. So if you still have the old one up, I think you'll probably have to put it in again, put the Kahoot IT in again. And there will be a new pin for you.
Or what I just did is I just deleted the tail, because you're in the feedback loop. And if you just delete that and go back to the .it and hit enter, you'll get it too.
Okay, Darren's in. Yumi's in. Ashley's in. Anissa's in. And I think I will go, hopefully Brenda will join us in progress. So we will start the game. Ready? There's 4 questions for this one as well. What is the biggest mistake with stage presence? Being overwhelmed by presenting, forgetting what I'm supposed to say, using ums and ahs when presenting, not making eye contact. Five, 4, 3, 2. Okay, one person got what I had said at the beginning. You can say lots of different things are the biggest problem, no question. But what I had said, the sort of overarching biggest problem is being overwhelmed by presenting. So let's see who's in the lead. Yumi's in the lead. Okay, next. True or false? Nerves are normal and necessary. Almost everybody got it right. Yes, nerves are normal and necessary. You don't want excessive nerves, and there's a whole bunch of different tools that I can share with you on how to get nerves to get to that right level of nervous energy. Okay, next. Oh, Darren has snuck in front. Next. What does the audience want from an informative presenter? Do they want the speaker to fail? Do they want the speaker to provide information and be engaging? Do they want the speaker to provide just the facts, or do they want the speaker to tell jokes? And everybody's in, so I'm going to skip. And everybody got it right. Yay! The speaker to provide information and be engaging. And you got a nice big check. Excellent. Okay, Darren is now in front with Brenda being the farthest growing, quickest growing. And we'll move on to the next one. What's the tool I shared with you for stage presence? Was it to stand in a power pose, to pause when speaking, to give yourself a butterfly hug, or to say a mantra before you present? And all 5 got it right. Say a mantra. Yay! Awesome. Yeah, and you get a nice green. So here's our podium. In 3rd place, Anissa. In 2nd place, Brenda. And in 1st place, Darren. Yay! So Darren, I will be in touch and to schedule your needs assessment. And we'll go to a new game here. And we'll get rid of some of this stuff. Don't need that, don't need that. Oh. Stop that. Oh. It's wanting me to do something. Leave, yes. I want to go back to my cahoots. There we go. That's where I want to be when I come out of my PowerPoint. After the next bit. So this brings us to the science of connection. As I said at the very beginning, facts do not persuade. And I got that from Stephen Denning's book, The Secret Language of Leadership. And in that book, he refers to a few studies. First, the death penalty study. In this study, they got an equal number of people who were strongly supportive and strongly opposed to the death penalty. And they showed everyone the same set of studies, half of which said the death penalty had a strong deterrent effect. The other half said the death penalty had no deterrent effect. Then they asked them what they thought. Those who were supportive of the death penalty were even stronger in that opinion, and they were so pleased that the studies had supported that. Those who were opposed were even more strongly opposed and were very pleased that the studies supported that. Interesting, they'd all seen the same studies, half showing each. So what's going on? This is what's known as confirmation bias. And it was noticed by the ancient Greeks. It was then talked about by Sir Francis Bacon in the Elizabethan age, and it was proven by a psychologist working in the 1960s. And what this says essentially is if you have a strong belief and then you get information that contradicts that belief, you won't see it, or you'll try to explain it away, or you won't hear it, whatever, you won't take it in. Why is that? So that's the next study, which is the 2004 presidential election study. In this study, they got an equal number of strong Republicans and strong Democrats and hooked them up to functional magnetic resonance imaging machines. fMRIs look at what part of the brain is active when. So they showed each group self-contradictory statements by their preferred candidate. For the Republicans, George W. Bush. For the Democrats, John Kerry. What happened was the reasoning part of the brain did not light up at all. What lit up were the emotional circuits in the brain. And when the participants said they'd figured out how to make that self-contradictory statement actually support their candidate, It was the pleasure part of the brain that lit up, massively reinforcing their original position. So then we turn to images, that the more text and data you have on the screen, the less that's remembered. And this is based on John Sweller's work on cognitive load theory. And essentially what that says is we have very limited working memory. Working memory is where information goes before it gets put into long-term memory. So if you see something, hear something, touch something, smell something, whatever, that ends up in working memory. And what Sweller said is if you fill that up with the how of your presentation, that is either how you feel on stage, not feeling very, confident, or what you have on your screen or whatever, all that stuff will fill up working memory and there won't be room for the information. I like to think of it like a wooden grocery box. So you take that box, you're really, really hungry, you go to the store and you fill it up with junk food. So you fill it up to the very top with pop and candy and chips and all the stuff that you probably shouldn't be eating, but you're really hungry, so you do it anyway. And then when it's completely full, you think, oh, wait a minute, I'm here to buy groceries for the week. I better go get some fruits and vegetables. And so you get fruits and you get vegetables and you get some protein and you try to put that into the box and it all just rolls away. So there was another scientist after Sweller who came up with 12 principles of multimedia learning. And most of those, I'm not going to go through each of them in detail, most of those end up saying that speech and images are good. The redundancy principle is what not to do. And that is text and speech. And there's a couple of reasons for that. The redundancy principle itself, which says that when I'm talking and what I'm saying is up in front of you on the screen, your brain is doing this mental gymnastics. What's she going to say? Is it going to be the same? Is it going to be different? If it's different, why is it different? Which one's right? Blah, 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 blah. The moment your brain's doing that, you're not actually hearing what I'm saying, or you're certainly not taking it in. The other problem, of course, is if what I'm saying is up on the screen behind me, or in front of me in this case, if what's up on the screen is the same as what I'm saying, you'll be reading ahead. And again, you're not really listening to me, you're reading ahead. So I actually did see this in real life as well. It was another webcast, again from Ontario, and in this case, the presenter was talking about the rules for crowdfunding. And the rules are different in BC than in Ontario, or at least they were at that time. He actually was talking about both the Ontario and BC rules. The only problem was he got the BC rules backwards. He said the BC rules only applied to Group A, when in fact, it didn't apply to Group A at all. It only applied to Group B. As we were walking, and when it finished, I sort of said, that's really weird. You don't see someone really get something backwards very often. And, everyone but one in the room said, yeah, that was weird. And one person said, no, he got it right. And we went back and forth a few times. No, he didn't. Yes, he did. No, he didn't. And then he went, oh, I know what happened. I was reading his slide. I didn't hear a word he said. So if you're presenting, you actually do want people to hear what you're saying. So you do not want them to just read the slides. So that brings us to stories. Stories are pretty magical. We'll get to the magic a bit later. So I learned about why stories connect from Kendra Hall. She's a professional storyteller. I didn't know such people existed, but she does. And she came to the Toastmasters International Convention here in Vancouver in 2017. And she shared 4 reasons that stories connect. First, that humans love stories. And she cited a Super Bowl ad where they looked at ads, and you probably know how much, well, maybe not exactly, but they pay a tremendous amount of money for a 30-second spot on the Super Bowl. And they did a study where they looked at ads that had celebrity endorsements, ads that used cute little animals, and ads that told stories. And the ones that did best were the ads that told stories. Secondly, We make our decisions from emotions first, and then we go looking for facts to support them. And that is set out in a lot of detail in Malcolm Gladwell's book, Blink. Thirdly, stories have an effect on the brain. They increase cortisol, which increases the attention that you're paying to the presenter, or that the audience is paying to you, is probably more to the point. And secondly, it increases oxytocin, which is the trust and connection hormone. Finally, stories are uniquely memorable. They're sort of magical. And the reason for this is that we co-create stories. The audience co-creates it with the presenter. When I talked about my terrifying time at SFU, if you've ever been in that position, terrified when you were presenting, then you have the same emotional reaction you had then. And that means that you are using your whole brain, not just the visual cortex or auditory cortex for what you're seeing or hearing. It's the whole brain that's involved, and that's what makes the stories memorable. And I was working with a client, Maria-Len Pelletier, and she already knew about using stories. Maria-Len is a psychologist. She came to me, she'd done over 500 presentations. This was not someone who had never spoken. This is not someone who had a fear of presenting, far from it. The reason she came to me is first that she was doing a presentation on a subject that she had been thinking about for a long time, but she hadn't spoken about. And secondly, that she was speaking to one of her larger audiences. Her audience was about 1,600 people. And what she said was, Brenda pointed to what I needed to keep doing and made helpful recommendations, all of which I followed. I knew I could trust her, and doing so paid off in getting closer to my audience faster. That brings us to learning styles, and there's all sorts of different learning styles. There's 4 learning styles, there's 7 and 8 learning styles. I chose to present the 4 BARC learning styles. This was developed by a New Zealand teacher who was trying to figure out why some students could learn from the worst teachers and other students had real difficulty learning from the best teachers. So unless you are completely sure of what learning style your audience has, you should try to develop your presentation tapping into all 4 styles. So what are the 4 styles? BARC is an acronym, so the B stands for visual. So these are people who learn through images, not words. They they process information through graphs and flowcharts, and they can't really remember a concept if it's not linked to an image. Auditory. These people learn best by hearing words. They like processing by talking things through. The reading-writing people like reading information, and they process information by writing it down. They make notes. And finally, kinesthetic learners, these people like to learn by doing, by touching, by practicing. And so when I was putting this together, I've tapped into all 4. So visual, I have images on every slide. Auditory, I'm talking, so that helps them. Reading, writing, there's a fillable handout, so you can write things out. And for the kinesthetic, there is the writing out. That is sort of a kinesthetic thing as well. But there's also the game, which is very much a kinesthetic learner thing, although it's pretty fun for everyone. I did the VARC test, which is available for you in my masterclass on the Entrepreneur Collective. And when I did it, my top 2 were kinesthetic and auditory. So we have a game. Back to the games. And see if we get a new winner this time. And here we have 6 questions, so a little more time to, and this will come up with a new number in a moment or 2. There we go. We have the pin up, 4112083. Yumi's up. Ashley's in. Brenda's in. Waiting for Darren and Anissa. Anissa's in. Okay, I'm going to start. Darren, I hope you'll make it in soon. So here is our first question. Science tells us that facts are great to start your presentation with. Do not persuade. Should be everything in your presentation. Can't be used too much. One second. Yeah, so 3 out of 4 of you got the correct answer, which is facts do not persuade. So that gets us, and we'll see who's in front. Yumi's in front.
I don't have a connection to the Kahoot on my phone. It's just stalled.
Oh, do you want to get out and try again?
Sure.
Like sort of completely close it and then try? Just getting to kahoot.it, like not the number?
Yeah, I'm trying to do that. My phone is it's just
spinning.
Yeah, it's just
spinning. Oh, well.
Yeah, so count me out in this game.
Yeah,
so.
sit this one out.
I'll sit this one out.
Next. Do facts persuade an audience? Yes, because humans are rational. Yes, because need facts for an audience. No, because of confirmation bias. No, because humans rely on social incentives. And everybody got that one right because of confirmation bias. Well done. Oh, and we've got a new person joining us. So they'll have to wait for the next game. Okay, next question. Oh, not next question, I forgot. Oh, Yumi's got quite a bit of a lead, but Anissa, you're almost there. The more text and data you have on the screen, the easier it is for people to remember, the less work you have to do, the less people remember, the easier it is for you to remember what to say. Whoa! Everybody got it right. The less people remember. Yay, well done. Oh, Yumi's pulling ahead. Should slides have just title and images? Yes, because people remember more that way. No, because the presenter won't know what to say. Yes, because seeing pictures is fun. No, because the audience can't take notes. Oh, almost everybody got it right. Yes, because people remember more that way. Absolutely. And what does that do to our total? Oh, Yumi is pulling away with this one. Oh, and somebody had 4 correct, but I missed it before I kept going. Sorry. Probably Yumi, given where this. Okay. Whoops. Should you include stories in an informative presentation? Yes, because stories are fun. No, because these presentations should just have facts. No, because there won't be time for stories. Yes, because stories connect to audience members, so they remember. And only 2 people answered in time, and they said they got it right. They said yes, because stories connect to the audience members, so they remember. And Yumi has a streak of 5 correct answers in a row. Wow. What are the 4 BARC learning styles? Verbal, analytical, rational, knowledge focused, visual, analytical, reading, kinesthetic, visual, auditory, reading, writing, kinesthetic, verbal, auditory, rational, knowledge focused. We split a bit here, 2-1, but 2 people got it right: visual, auditory, reading, writing, kinesthetic. And here's our podium. In 3rd place, Brenda. In 2nd place, Ashley. And in 1st place, Yumi. Yay! So Yumi, I will be in touch and we'll figure out, because you've had a needs assessment done, so we'll figure out what to do next time. Okay, we'll get the feedback. So this is all what the answers or what the totals were. And now we'll get to a new game and we'll close some of these out so they don't stop us from accessing it when we come back. Okay, and back to the PowerPoint. So that brings us to structure, the last major part. This is divided into 2 bits, which is organization, which is first, and PowerPoint. So the mistake with organization is to overwhelm with facts. So have you ever done a presentation using what I like to call the problem-focused approach? This goes something like this. Here's the problem I was asked to address. Here's some options I've considered. My preferred option is this because of these reasons. I did that kind of a presentation many, many times over, the 15 years before I got training in how people learn and remember. That's actually not a bad way to approach the facts portion of your presentation. But in my 5-step structure for a presentation, facts is step number 4. So if you're not going to use problem focused, what about another approach you might have heard? Say what you're going to say it, say what you said. That's fine as far as it goes. Yes, you need an intro that sets out where you're going. Yes, you need to have some body content, and yes, you should sum it up at the end. But that on its own won't make for a memorable presentation. What you need to do at the beginning is to get the audience's attention. And that leads us to tool number 2 for organization, which is to start with a challenging story or challenging question. And in my presentation today, I did both. I started with my challenging story. That was me at SFU. And then I asked I started with, have you done a presentation where people weren't connecting? And then I told my challenging story. So I did both. And I have a story about the impact of this. So at the BC Securities Commission where I worked, one of the things I did was, as a staff ambassador, I went out and talked to seniors groups about how to protect themselves from fraud and unsuitable investments. When I first went out, it was before we had the training that I mentioned earlier, and I'd start something like this. My name is Brenda Benham from the BC Securities Commission. The BC Securities Commission is a quasi-government agency. Our mission is to protect and promote the public interest by fostering a fair and efficient capital market and a dynamic and competitive securities industry. And I'm here to talk to you about fraud. And by the time I got to the word fraud, none of my seniors were still with me. They had dozed off into that very factual but completely boring presentation. After the training, we started with the story of Fran. Fran was a widow in Kamloops. She had a disabled daughter, and her husband, when he died, had left her a small inheritance. She needed more than what the banks were paying at the time, and a friend introduced her to a, quote, financial whiz, whose name was Stephen Hughes. She talked to some people, and they all seemed to think it was a good idea, so she gave her money to Stephen Hughes. Unfortunately, Stephen Hughes was a fraudster, and he took all the money she gave him. Now, I'm here today to share with you 5 warning signs of fraud that if Fran had known them, she wouldn't have lost her money. And the seniors were wide awake when I started with Fran's story. Sorry, I'm just checking time. We'll be done shortly. Anyway, so when we started with the mission of the BC Securities Commission is blah, 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 about what we did, whichever way we started, we did a survey about 6 months after our presentation to see how many of the 5 warning signs people remembered. When we started with our mission, they remembered none or 1. If we were really lucky, they got 2. When we started with Fran, people remembered at least 3 or 4, and some even got all 5. The change in the impact was dramatic. So that brings us to mistake number 1 for PowerPoint, which is to overwhelm the audience with text and data. What's on the screen is an actual slide from the US government on their Afghan stability approach. Even if it was full screen, you couldn't actually read it, but you'd sure try. And the moment you're trying to read it, you're not listening to me. So what is the worst thing you've seen in a PowerPoint that you've been at? I'll wait for a few responses and then I'll get Anissa to tell me. But while we're waiting, I will talk about this video, which is up in the Entrepreneur Collective in my masterclass. It's called Life After Death by PowerPoint, and it's by Don McMillan. Don McMillan is an engineer. He graduated from Stanford. He has a master's in electrical engineering, but he is not working as an engineer. He's working as a corporate comedian, and this video is actually very funny on all the bad things people do in PowerPoint. So what's the worst that people have seen?
So from Yumi, statistics that I couldn't even see from Yumi. Actually, text was tiny and filled the whole slide. And I know for me, I've put up all the text and just read straight from the text.
Yep. So have I.
But that was, so you got to start somewhere.
You can start somewhere, exactly.
And presenter used too many technical terms, so you don't want to speak above your audience.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so
text that didn't relate. Brenda said text that didn't relate to the presentation. That's interesting.
Oh, that's interesting. That's very bad. Okay, so there are a couple of common uses of PowerPoint. Some people, and I actually saw someone do this last week, some people use it as their speaking notes. It has every word they're going to say. Other people use it as their handout. It has sort of short phrases. However, this is not how you should use PowerPoint. PowerPoint is not there to be your speaking notes, and it's not there to be your handout. What PowerPoint is there for is to support you as the speaker. And that leads to tool number 1 for PowerPoint, which is to include an image or multiple images on every slide. So that gets us back to our game. So if you're able to get out of the old game and get back in, and I will start the last game. This is the last one. Whoops, just a minute. Play.
And for Angel, who just came in, if you look in the, if you're playing, it is Kahoot.
It'll be up here in a sec. Join at kahoot.it, which is on the screen.
I put ATP.
And the number for this game is 411261. Yumi's in, Darren's in. Oh, good, you got back in, Darren, great.
Oops.
Brenda's in. Anissa's in. Okay, I think we'll start. People who are missing, Ashley and Angel, might be able to get in later, but we'll start anyway because we need to get finished. So, organization and PowerPoint. What is the biggest mistake with organization of a presentation? Overwhelming your audience with facts, starting with a challenging story or challenging question, not letting the audience know what's being covered, being disorganized in presenting information. Okay, half and half. Half of you thought overwhelming the audience with facts, which is what I had shared as, in my view, the biggest mistake. Certainly being disorganized, which is what the other two of you chose, is a problem, but I think overwhelming with facts is the bigger problem. So Brenda's in front right now. What's the best way to start a presentation? with an outline of what will be covered, with a biography of the presenter, by getting the audience's attention with the first important fact. And everybody got that. Get the audience's attention. Yay! And interesting, I was on a presentation yesterday and they didn't do that. They started with, hi, my name is, and this is my background. That's how they started. So Darren has leapt in front of Brenda, but it is still very close. The tool for organization you learned was to say what you're going to say it, say what you said, to provide as many facts as possible in the time you have, to use the problem-focused approach for organization, to start with a challenging story or challenging question. So 3 out of 4 of you got it right, to start with a challenging story or challenging question. Excellent. Oh, Darren has the highest answer streak of 3. What's the biggest mistake with PowerPoint? Overwhelming the audience with text and data, having too many slides for the allotted time, having text too small for the audience to read, having confusing data on the slides. And everybody who answered got that right, but some people did not answer. So yes, overwhelming the audience with text and data. And it's between Darren and Brenda at this point. What is PowerPoint for? To act as handouts for the audience, to support the speaker, to be speaking notes for the speaker, or to entertain the audience. And all 4 the people who answered got it right, to support the speaker. And the numbers here will be how fast people answered rather than whether they got the right answer. And the tool for PowerPoint you learned was to have only 1 line of text per line, to include lots of data on the slide, to include images on every slide, or to have only 1 slide per minute of allotted time. And all 4 of you got that right. And here's our podium. In 3rd place, Yumi. In 2nd place, Brenda. And in 1st place, Darren again. Okay, so Darren won twice. So we'll figure out what your 2nd prize will be, Darren. And here's the numbers. Brenda was actually pretty close to Darren. Excellent, okay. We'll go from where we were. So I've shared a lot of information with you in this presentation. I realize you almost certainly won't remember all of it, but I do hope you'll remember the 3 tools I've shared with you. Tool number 3, to say a mantra before you speak. Tool number 2, to start every presentation with a challenging story or challenging question. And tool number 1, to include an image on every slide. Imagine if every time you spoke, your audience was glued to every word you said, and they remembered what you said weeks or even months after you spoke. Even better, they were applying the information you'd shared in their business. Now, there's 3 ways I can help people get there. One is the boot camp that I talked about with Victoria. So this is for inexperienced speakers, and Victoria was one of those. This usually takes around 6 weeks, but it can be compressed as needed. And it involves training on something and then practice, and then training and practice and training and practice. The second way is the polish for experienced speakers like Maria Len, who I mentioned when we were talking about stories and connection. This can be done like a week before your presentation. This is for people who really do know what they're doing. They don't need to have all this training. They just need to have one thing tweaked to make it even better, or one little thing better. So that's what the polish is. The third way is that I work with organizations. And I worked with EWAS, which is a division of Cargill International, the feed company. And Katrina, who arranged for my work there, said, Brenda accommodated our request to customize her training materials for our needs. More importantly, she delivered an engaging and effective workshop. So I have gifts for you when you join the masterclass on the Entrepreneur Collective. One is from me, and it is a 10-step handout that will have 10 things to do to make your next informative presentation memorable. It is just one page, and so it can go up behind your computer. It could go into a binder that you have. It's a handy little tool to have, and when you sign up for the masterclass, you will get that. Secondly, comes from Hervana, and Hervana is an amazing community for women. Meredith, who's the founder of Hervana and a member of the ladies meeting, has offered and I'd like you to join me at the next her chat, which will be online first thing in the morning. It's either 7:30 or 8. It's on the Foundation of Leadership for Entrepreneurs or something like that. I'm not sure I've quite got the right thing, but it's something like that. And it's on the morning of April 15th. And there's a gift certificate for you for that when you join the masterclass. As Warren Buffett said to the graduating class of Columbia University Business School in 2009, you can improve your value by 50% by improving your communication skills, public speaking. Does anyone have any questions?
That was awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Not seeing any questions in the corner here. Anyone else have questions? As well, if you want to find the event for Hervana, it's in events in the Entrepreneur Collective, as well as if you go to classes, you'll find Brenda's class in the entrepreneurcollective.com for sure. All right. I don't see any.
Okay. No questions?
Yeah,
that's great.
Work, says Brent. Ashley says great work. I think it was an amazing presentation. And you're part of Hervana, and how else can people find you?
People can find me by going to my website, which is www.memorablepresenter.ca, or sending me an email, brenda@memorablepresenter.ca.
Awesome. Thank you for coming today, everybody.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, and please get in there and connect with one or two other people in regards to your business in the entrepreneurcollective.com. As well, normally the ladies meeting on the last Tuesday of the month would just be ladies, but since we're online, we're just going to invite everybody, and I'll have that up shortly. I'm just going to start building that, and if you know of anyone who would like to come in and sponsor with their business, let me know what we can share with our participants to support you in your business as we all come back offline eventually. Grow our influence. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Anissa. Really enjoyed this. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you all online soon. Take care, and hopefully in person. Stay well, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.